amongst the members of the guild, the person who I still think has come the longest way and overcome the most personal things is definitely Gajeel. Gajeel has such an amazing story. I mean, even not being my favorite character, I feel like if you looked at the guild overall, and probably the series itself overall, he's definitely one of the ones that just has the most interesting story. Because he's not the main character, he's not, he doesn't have, like, Gray's rival position, he doesn't have that, very popular, very powerful kind of presence that Urza has, he's not, like, some, trick villain like Zareth. He starts out as like a pretty straightforward bad protagonist, or not, sorry, protagonist, antagonist, and he ends up getting defeated. He was just like some guy like who had this kind of like strong like ideal of strength and just being like a scummy criminal. And then like after he joins the guild, like it starts to really turn around. Like it was a surprise that Gajeel joined the Fairy Tale Guild when it first happened. The fact that we weren't sure exactly what his motivations were. I still think that the whole part where it was revealed that he was he was a double agent working with Raventail, and then like the same arc you found out he was a triple agent working for Fairy Tail to get information on Raventail. I wish we found that one thing specifically. I wish that Hiramashima had happened later. I mean, it didn't really matter too much because in the overall aspect, like it wasn't a vital thing about Gajeel's story. I mean, his was more about like him going from this very scummy, like, as I said, straightforward bad criminal to this big-hearted, just all-around good guy. Like, the fact that the first thing we really find out about him, like, he trashes the guild, and then he attacks, Shadowgear at night, like, just to have, like, this extra fuck you to the Fairy Tail Guild, and then just, not only just attacking them, but just crucifying them up on a tree, Levy, Jet, and Droy, and then that person that he ends up feeling really bad about, like we see after he joins the guild, is the star of the fighting festival, that he felt really bad about it. He was just letting Jet and Droy beat up on him because he felt the fact that he realized that he was, pretty scummy after, reflecting over it all, and then protecting Levy when Laxus shot a lightning bolt at her, and then further progressing towards just being more of this, I'm not a nice guy, but I'm not a bad guy anymore. And then just every single time we kind of got a glimpse of him, it was further progressed down that better line. And then in just general, like, more badass stuff when you saw that kind of villainous side of him peek out, like in Edalus when he, because the whole funny thing about Edalus is, he wasn't in the Arasion Sace arc, he wasn't there for Nirvana, and then, like, we come back to the guild, and, they brought Wendy, Natsu and Wendy both have their Exceed, and Gajeel, his concern is the fact that he's the only one without a cat, because he's a little bit self-conscious. We find that more about later, like, even further, like, pushing it for his character, when he felt like he was always the one falling behind. He was the last one to get, like, in comparison, like, he got motion sickness way after Natsu, Sting, and Rogue. Obviously, Wendy was way later, but Wendy was a little kid at the time. But Wendy also, was able to get Dragon Force, like, at will long before Gajeel has. We don't even know if he can activate Dragon Force at will even now. So, that whole thing about him, like, leading into the Edalus arc was very amusing because it was funny for him. Like, he had this obsession with finding a cat. But at the same time, it was, a deeper look into his character because we saw vulnerability of him. It wasn't just this, bad, like, vicious kind of sharp-edged, yet at the same time hardened dude. We saw some nicer aspects of him in the fighting festival, trying to make up for things he did. And then we saw just, like, his insecurities, which was really nice. And then just, like, the badass portion of it, like when he found Panther Lily and he decided to make him his cat and just smashed his sword with his his physical strength, and then roared the dude right down into the platform, the big floating ion they were on, which was just a pretty badass yet fun moment for him. Then him getting Panther Lily, and them just having like a very fun dynamic duo. You have this deep voiced, like big, normally Panther Man, and then down to like this cute little chibi version who's like afraid of lightning, and with this vicious iron dragon dude who, we saw, like, I guess one thing was only anime only when you saw Edalus Gajeel, who had like a perm and he was a journalist. But then we see stuff like when he became a part of the council and he was going out around arresting people. He had this ex-criminal who is now, he pretty much was an attack dog for the government. And then he further kind of like took it back up after they had the whole stuff about Toka, and he and Panther Lily decided to be detectives and have not only detective outfits but detective wear. And it was unfortunate that there's a scene in Phoenix Priestess that's not canon, but it's always a shame because I always think it's really funny. Is you get a part where they're in a bar and you have Gajeel and Panther Lily like doing shots of whiskey, which I thought was hilarious. Is because Panther Lily is like 1.5 feet tall, and he's just like going shot for shot with Gajeel, which I thought was great. But his story, we had some parts that even though they should have been further put out in the manga, like the whole portion during the Tartarus arc, where one of the council members was supposed to be tied into his backstory, but it never really happened in the long run. But we did end up seeing it as it affected him in the story, because we saw like his, the member was, I don't remember her name, but she was very, stern with Gajeel a lot of the time. She constantly kind of like almost acted like some people probably say like pseudo mom, but always had that grandma vibe to her from what I felt. And then obviously that, Gajeel was appreciative that she was looking out for him, but he had to keep up that tough guy kind of look to him. And then when he found out she died, he shed tears for her because he felt really bad. This person that had been trying multiple times to help him is now gone, and I was like reflecting over all those moments, and I really always liked that about Gajeel. He's the toughest dragon slayer in terms of just like his body. He's the most durable, that iron skin. He's just rough and tough, and yet he's probably like the biggest softy on the inside. But we get further stuff like with Levy when the S-class exams and the tournament happened. I don't want to say tournament. S-class test survey. I don't know, exams probably works the best, but that whole trial is much, I think, isn't an S-class trial? I'm trying to remember what they said specifically, but you know what I mean. When that all went down, Levy was one of the people picked. Gajeel was a little bit mad because it wasn't him, but obviously he was, I didn't want to get too much attention to him because he was, a triple agent at that point, and they didn't want to pull him over there. Plus it'd be weird for, this guy who only like 6 months prior destroyed the guild hall, like aided to that. And from there he decided to go with Levy because Levy was very insecure about her own aspects, and she's small, she's not a very good fighter. She's intelligent, and she's like much more of a like wide variety support, but she wasn't too confident what she was going to display. And Gajeel ends up coming to her and lifting her up and saying like even if she feels small, he'll help her be big. And it was just so nice because you had this setup for them, obviously starting out very bad, and then Levy seeing Gajeel help him, protect him from Laxus, and then every single time really they got together again, it just helped them further progress. And then him protecting her versus members of Grimoire Heart, his whole thing about, having that flashback when Makarov found him and how he was taking pride at that point of being a member of the Fairy Tale Guild. And just every single time Gajeel's character got another bump, he went a little bit more forward. And like even looking at him now, like we saw during the Alvarez War, that he was still kind of like upset that the other characters had things he didn't. Like he was falling behind the other Dragon Slayers. But after the point where he almost died because of Bloodman, and he was lucky that Irene had Universe 1 set up at the time and gone off, that he was able to come back and really join the cast. Like he almost died from this. If it, like I said, if Irene didn't have Universe 1, timed, convenient. I don't want to say convenient. I'd say luckily, because it was all being set up at the same time. If that didn't happen, then he would have died. And it was really nice to see like that moment where he's like, I shouldn't be thinking about what I don't have and what others have. It should be what I already have and appreciate him. Because obviously at that point, really he was, he thought about his life and what it could have been with Levy and, all that he's had since, turning against the previous life he had. And you even saw aspects of it during his volume spin-off, Road Knight. And, him just wanting to fix things about his past. And even with, like the whole point where Bloodman, because Bloodman was having people crucified from like Sabretooth and stuff as they were, defeated up in the north. And Gajeel was obviously very sensitive about the idea of crucifying people because it reminded him of a much worse version of him that he had long since wanted to put behind him. And at this point now, like how much he's jumped forward has really just kind of like displayed with him. It's really shown like who he is and the long journey that he's progressed. And I'm very excited to see what Gajeel is going to be like when he finds out about Levy being pregnant, when they end up having their kids and he's a dad, because even though he doesn't get a lot towards like action wise in the series, a lot of like his character displays are from him taking a beating. It actually reminds me a lot of in that aspect, just thinking about Red Riot from My Hero Academia. Like that dude, they both have this aspect of them. All their best moments are from them just getting the shit kicked out of them. But it shows a lot of their character at the same time. So when Gajeel, especially like, I can see Gajeel being that guy of like, we see him in the story like a couple of years further, and he's just gonna be like still a complete dick to Natsu. He's gonna be like, in a fight, still acting like, very vicious, his normal self, throwing swords around and stabbing people up with it, his iron arm, like turn into spears or clubbing the shit out of them, breathing razor sharp metal at them from his roar. And then like he gets home and he's just like this big softy dad to his kids. And I want that to happen. And it'll be so nice to really see that spawn of Gajeel further progress. And it is nice. It is very nice to see like where he's really come to, and at the same time where he's further going. And like you see even in this panel right here, when he was losing to Torafusa and it started to look like he was down and out, is the fact that the dude was going to attack Levy gave him that burst of anger and energy, and then he was able to grab her and smack the dude out of the way. It was very nice. Like Levy obviously really helped him in that, and yet the fact that the idea to him of her being hurt really just kind of strung him up viciously. And it's similar to like when Natsu thought Lucy died and Gray thought Juvie had died. That really affected them a lot. But with Gajeel and Levy, they are really out of what you could really consider the headset cast of the series, because Gajeel unfortunately isn't like part of the core group, but he's kind of like alternating. He's like first alternator. And he's really become one of the, furthest, at least in their relationship. Because who are the only other people? Like Biska and Alzak, because they actually, over the time skip had a kid. Excluding them, like Gajeel and Levy are about to. And even I always think it's funny, like that moment, there's like a small moment if you go back, if you haven't seen it, at the start of the Alvarez arc, right when Agiel is invading. If you look at the Gajeel and Levy panels, you actually can see the blankets that they have on them are the exact same ones. So that little hint there that they were in bed together was always just a nice little like, hey, all you ship crazy people, did you notice this? And then just see them like lose. It still happens every now and then when you bring it up to some. But I'm really looking forward to seeing where Gajeel goes. I've always really liked this character. I just think he's an all-around interesting guy. And like, it shows that even when you have a character, you can introduce a character at just being a very, very basic person. He's like, okay, because if you go back and read Phantom Lord, Gajeel at the start, really, you can just, he's a cool-looking bad guy, and he's mean, and he's scummy. There's nothing else much to him at that point. The only kind of like other thing you can really pull out of it was at the end when Natsu managed to beat him, and they had their short talk, was when he talked about Mental Kana, because that was his dragon father, and obviously he had some reservations about him disappearing as well. I mean, that was like only a small bit you only got to see for a little bit, and then you didn't even see the guy in the series again for like almost a year. So that whole aspect for him, like you can turn any character into a great character, and you can have the most like straightforward, boring, stale character, very just generic, and really construct a really good storyline. And Gajeel is a very good example. So tell me in the comment section below what you thought about this. I mean, the dude is just awesome. He's awesome in so many respects. I mean, the theme was wild badass for this one, and I talked more about him just being like a great character. But anybody who has read the series knows that he's super badass. Even like one of the parts that's like I was so annoyed in the anime because the anime like hyped it down a lot, is when he's finding the The members of Grimoire Heart and the dude's katana goes to him. In the anime, he turns it in his Iron Dragon club, and it's just like a metal pole, and the sword goes in it. But in the manga, what actually happened, it went all the way through his palm, out through his shoulder, and then he grabs the sword and then just like flexes and breaks it, and then proceeds to take him out. That was such a Chad moment for him. Other than that, like I said, comment below. Tell me what you think about the character. Tell me what you think about Gajeel's story and what you're really looking forward to most. Again, I'm looking forward to Papa Gajeel and seeing what he's like towards his two. We know, I mean, we know that Levy's gonna have a kid. It's pretty much like been made apparent that they're gonna be twins from the novel that Hiro Mishima did. I don't know if it's canon, but it's clear what his intentions are. So we'll see that. Other than that, though, comment below, thumbs up the video. I'd really appreciate if you press the like button and subscribe button and check out my other videos. But on that, I appreciate everyone who's already subscribed, and I thank you all for listening. Bye.